Hello, everybody. Commissioner Mairead McGuinness, Laurent Mignon, thank you very much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you in person. So, Mairead McGuinness, you are Commissioner for Financial Services, Financial Stability and Capital Markets Union. And Laurent Mignon, you are CEO of BPCE, the bank, and Chairman of the Climate Committee of the French Banking Association. Thank you both for being here on this cross-look about investors supporting the ecological transition. Commissioner, you will explain us the role and the ambition of the European Commission towards this subject. And Laurent Mignon, you will provide us the point of view of banks. So to start, Commissioner Mairead McGuinness, as we close the precedent roundtable with the taxonomy, we will start also with the taxonomy. It is presented as the first building block of the EU Sustainable Finance Strategy. How this framework can help private investors to better support the ecological transition. Does this tool work for both public financing and private investments?
First, je suis désolée. Je ne parle pas bien le français, mais j'apprends. Peut-être demain.
Very good.
I could try explain the taxonomy in French, but I think it's too important today. We need to be crystal clear about what we're talking about. So, first of all, a sincere thank you to the organisers. As a member of the European Commission, I value connecting with you. I'm almost terrified because I look at a huge audience. We are masked and we are respecting the world we live in today. When the last panel finished, I felt that the conversation reflected the seriousness of the situation. So let me explain the taxonomy. Without a taxonomy, we will flounder. Without clear definitions of what is sustainable, sector by sector, neither the corporates or those in those sectors, SMEs, or the financial world, the investors, the banks, will know what to do and how to do it. So the taxonomy, maybe the word doesn't help, but it is both a destination and a signpost. So if you are in the aluminium sector, you will look at where you need to be sustainable. And if you are further back in that process, you know how to get there incrementally. For the financial world, they will know very clearly when they're investing in what is sustainable. But here is the most important part for business. And I think perhaps we need to be very clear today about this. If we only invest in the tiny part of our economic system that today is sustainable, we fail. So the key is to unlock private and public, but a lot depends on private, investment in the transition towards sustainability. And I think if I give that message, and if you pass on this message to SMEs, to corporates large, etc., then there will be less fear around the taxonomy. When I was a member of the European Parliament, not that long ago, I was first VP, I voted for the taxonomy before the last European election. So this is a long time in the making. I didn't realise it would be my responsibility as Commissioner for Financial Stability to implement in detail the taxonomy. I did appreciate the debate that would be around the details of the taxonomy. Naturally, there is disagreement. That is how we make progress. Specifically to your point about public and private, we need both. Already in the RRF, this program which will help us recover from COVID and kickstart our economies, member states have to invest in green and digital. The world is awash with money at the moment. And what we are saying to the money markets is if you want your money to make money in the long term and be sustainable, this is where it should be invested. The energy sector alone, we need annually 350 billion euros up to 2030, extra investment. And we need to target that investment. We also need that we talk about people. in this transition. Because maybe with my political background, also with our commitment to leave no one behind, and being today in France, we have to be sensitive to this social debate around the transition and understand what it takes to make sure that we leave no one behind. That is a huge commitment and a huge responsibility. We will not get there without money. So even if you don't like the idea that money will make the world go around, hopefully in a more sustainable direction, it won't happen without it. And therefore, the work I do, and it's quite heartening, but also with a huge sense of responsibility, because it is in my area where we are now center of delivering on the Green Deal. I heard very well the comment that people don't know what the Green Deal is. But you ask a child in school about recycling. They know what the Green Deal is. So I think maybe we overcomplicate the simple. And maybe we don't join the dots in our society, because many people, including our farmers, our processors, our schools, are doing wonderful things around circular economy and sustainability. The urgency is greater today. The COVID crisis has accelerated our understanding that we are not in control of the natural world. Did I ever think I would sit in a chamber where you were all masked? No, never. So there are new realities facing us. I hope we don't terrify all of us into being frozen and therefore unable to move. There are huge opportunities from this transition, and I think we need to talk about those. There are green jobs, green investments. We will create a much better and healthier world if we use our taxonomy. Make sure the private system understands what it is and how to use it, and develop it further. Merci.
Thank you very much. So we understand it's not, the taxonomy is also a tool for the transition. So Laurent Mignon, a reaction, how the EU taxonomy will help banks to better support this ecological transition. Do the banks waited for the taxonomy? And what is the role of banks in accompanying companies in their transition journey?
Well, first of all, thank you, Commissioner, for your introductory words, and I think they are very important because, as you mentioned, the transition, the ecological transition, is the really #1 issue that we are facing together today, and it is so complex that we need to put all the actors on the right direction. And in that sense, the taxonomy is very important because it gives a clear target. It gives a clear objective target. It is science-based. It is credible. It gives. It is. I think it has the right level of. It has to have the right level of specificities, because if we are too vague, it's not going to work. It has to be specific, and I think it's very important. It's a common definition. We need to have a common definition and a common goal in order to reach it. It's already so difficult to work on that change in civilization, which is what we're going through, that we need to have those common goals and common definitions. So that's very important. And I think taxonomy and the work that has been done by the European Commission is key, and we are in advance to the other part of the world. So that's, I think, a very important element. Well, obviously, as you mentioned, I mean, the issue of a transition, of a decarbonization of the society is not something that is just coming out now, and the taxonomy is an element, important element, but we have started as a society and member of the society to think about it before, and banks have been active in order to participate to that since years. Probably each of us with different approach, but we've been active since years. To be fair, to make a little bit of publicity, I think French banks have been way ahead compared to many other banking systems. The French bank has engaged themselves very clearly on the transition, probably because of the Paris COP 21, which was a clear change in the mindset of the full community. But I think we have engaged ourselves with clear common targets, so exclusion of coal, financing, investment in new energy. For example, the French bank are financing on total 41 billion of renewable energy in their portfolio. If you look to their coal portfolio, it's 2.3 billion. So that gives a good sense of how engaged they are today. And I think we are still very active also in the green economy. We're part of the top, all the French banks are part of the top 10 of green bond issuance and so on. So there's a great commitment today from them. But we're far away from being where we want. It's obvious. And as a bank, and I think we have, and Antoine Cyr mentioned that earlier, is we have a great responsibility to advise our client in this transition. The transition is going to be a difficult path, and it's not an obvious one. We mentioned SMEs, small companies, and so on. Big companies will have people that will, define strategy, policy. If you talk about the small company, they need to have some people that will advise them and help them in order to go through that transition and find the right way to adapt themselves. And this is something we do because it's our role within the economy, but also because it's our interest. It's our interest because if those people don't adapt themselves, their business model will not be adapted to the world, and they will lose their business, and we will have credit risk. So we need to help them going this path, and this is something we're doing, which is very important. So and so it's valid for our big clients, but I mentioned probably with more accurate even for the smaller one that will have to move. That will be also true for the private individual and probably the social acceptance of the Green Deal, like we mentioned. You say that people understand the Green Deal on their day-to-day life, but they agree with it, but do they really want it? I mean, they want it, but do they agree with it on their day-to-day life? We know it's a terrible, difficult issue. We have people are all agreeing of stopping to, reducing gas emission and so on, but they don't want to stop having their cars. And the ones that have the less means are the ones that are in the most difficult part. So we will need on our side to accompany that. Not only, we will need the political support to do that, because without that, that won't work. So I think, to come back to the taxonomy needs to help us to measure the transition efforts also. It cannot be only the goal. At some stage, I mean, the goal is by 2050. We have a new goal at 2030, the minus 55 target, but we need to have milestone. If we don't have milestone, we will never get there. And we know when we manage a company, if you have a plan and you just care about the plan at the end, it's not enough. You need to have milestone. So the transition path is as important as the goal. So we need to work on how do we get elements that can help us measuring the elements in the coming years.
Thank you, Laurent. So we understand that banks need also a milestone from the Commission regarding the transition pathway. Commissioner, what role does the EU Commission have to or can play to allocate the financial flows towards ecological transition and to accelerate the mobilization of banks and other investors? Because Laurent Mignon talked about the long-term commitment of banks, but we see the financial flows are not enough today. So what is the role of the Commission to accelerate this pathway?
The role of all of the institutions, both Commission, Parliament and Council, is to work together towards delivering the Green Deal. Specifically, the Commission has a role in proposing measures, and we've done this with three particular ones. The taxonomy we've already discussed. The next is disclosures, not just by companies, but by the financial system itself. And all of these things join up. We need to be more holistic. in everything we do. And in a sense, when these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle come together, we will see the full picture. And that is, as the last panel mentioned, we will come to a place where financial information and non-financial information will be of equal importance. And when we reach that, there will be an equilibrium. How I see, and sometimes visualization helps us, the world today, that the pendulum is here, and it will swing and swing and swing and swing and swing until it gets to a place where we arrive. And this is the destination part. On the transition, we specifically recently launched our renewed sustainable finance strategy, conscious of the global issues, the fear about the transition, the need to understand, as I said already, funding green today will not deliver transformation. Funding the transition will, and therefore we are setting these milestones along that path. If I could say something about the global story, because often citizens say to me, Europe is only 8% of emissions, so what's the point of us doing anything? And of course, we don't go with defeatism. Europe was built perhaps on investing in fossil and creating wealth because of it. So we have both a self-interest and a moral duty to be leaders in this field, and we are. But if we lead and no one follows, we will fail. So we work as a commission at the international level. We set up the international platform on sustainable finance so we would share our knowledge and exchange ideas and information. Globally, we need a common ground taxonomy. So there is a baseline. This does not stop Europe or other players having slightly differentiated views of what the taxonomy is. The unique double materiality concept, where I, as a company, report the impact of climate and biodiversity loss on my business, but equally, I report my impact on these issues. So we look two sides of the story. And we would like this to be used at the international level. We know that the ambience for change is better today with President Biden. We hope that the next round of COP in Scotland will deliver targets. But targets are very far away from people. And that's why I think, for example, the Conference on the Future of Europe, and I know France is really engaged in this, is an opportunity for us to talk about the big change. I think you used the word honesty. I believe in honesty and frankness. I left my jacket, I do have one. I rolled up my sleeves because I think, in a sense, that's what we need today. Less formality, more clarity, and deeper engagement with people, because institutions can point out the direction of travel. It is people individually and collectively that will change. And if we don't deliver on our leave no one behind, if we don't understand the consequences for different sectors of our society, then we risk further fragmentation, deeper division, and lack of progress. So from my side, and I hope I haven't rambled from your point about my role in all of this, is not just to sit in my office with my wonderful staff and draw up these wonderful ideas, and with my colleagues around the Commission table, all 27 agreeing. It is to be present in our member states, with those who are more vulnerable, with those who have the wealth to deliver, and speak to each other about what our individual and collective responsibilities are, and not do it with a sense of fear. Last comment. People talk about the cost of this transition, and it becomes monumental, even incomprehensible. The cost of inaction is much, much higher, much more severe. Look at New York yesterday. Look at our summers. Look at the fires. Look at the people who've lost their lives. In one sense, the cost of inaction is immeasurable. And therefore, the cost of action, we can afford this. There is a way to change. And the Commission has a duty to help and lead that change. And that's what we are doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Being conscious of time, this will be my last question. So, Laurent Mignon, maybe a reaction to what the Commissioner just said. And she mentioned the need of a global common ground around taxonomy. what does the bank expect from the European and global work regarding sustainability standardization? And what do you expect specifically from the EU Commission toward political ambition?
Well, again, banks are part of a global movement. The transition will not be done only through finance. Finance is a key element into it, but it's not the only one. So the first thing is, effectively, we need clear guidance in order to have one set of starting point, but a clear end point, and that's very important. Probably the issue of milestone, as I mentioned, because we need, and I know where there's work about the transition element, because they are very important. We need to go and to be able to measure the past. Measure means that we need to have clear data and set of data, and that is a very important element, because we will only be able to make sure that we're going the right path if we measure it, and so we need that transparency on non-financial disclosure, and that is that was mentioned previously in the roundtable also. It is, I think, very, very important. I'm going to make it very quickly, short. I think we also need not to be naive, and we need to have an adjustment mechanism at the border of Europe, and I think the CBAM is a very important tool that we expect for that, because we cannot transform our industry and see, in fact, the same thing being done outside and import it back. So this is, I think, and it is at the EU level that such things need to be done. To be fair, we need to have public sector help in order to make the transition acceptable from a social point of view. Because don't forget, this is a transformation in the life of the people. People are ready for the goal, but they're not ready for the change. So we need to help them, and specifically the people that have the less ability to afford that change. So we need to make, and I think that's probably the most difficult one, how to make this transition acceptable. And there we need the EU Commission and the states, obviously. And I think the Fit for 55 initiative is one clear way, which is to give targets also to some industry to constrain the change to come. So.
Thank you very much to the both of you. And so fair and just transition is really an important concept to implement. Thank you.
Thank you.